she told me, well, the owners that surrendered him said he never was potty trained. He was about a year old at the time. And I'm thinking in my mind going, a year old, he hasn't potty trained, and he looks like he's the sweetest dog I've ever seen. And he's about to be put down because of what I am now analyzing as being bad owners.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And I wrestled with it so much that night, I couldn't sleep. My husband finally said, honey, if you still feel like this in the morning, go get him. We will foster him, and we will help get him adopted to the right family.
Next level, we're reaching for the sky. Next level thinkers, we're aiming high. Pushing through the galaxies, no turning back. We're on a mission, blazing a funky track.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Next Level Thinkers, a Charting New Horizons of Brilliance podcast. Laura Rummel's journey began with a personal passion for animals that transformed into something greater. After rescuing her dog Chance, she realized that there was so much more she could do to improve the lives of pets and their owners. From that moment on, Laura co-founded Frisco Pet Partners, an organization dedicated to providing much-needed resources for pets in her community. But her story doesn't stop there. Laura's leadership extended far beyond animal welfare. As a community-centered leader, she played an instrumental role in advocating for policy changes that have made a real impact in the city of Frisco with the establishment of Frisco's Animal Advocacy Committee. What's particularly striking about Laura's work is how she's collaborated with others to make her vision a reality. Building a nonprofit is no small feat, and we'll talk about the partnership and support systems that have been crucial in Frisco Pet Partners' success. So whether you're passionate about animal welfare, community advocacy, or simply want to learn how to turn your vision into reality, you won't want to miss this conversation with Frisco's own community-centered leader, Laura Rummel.
Oh, thank
Laura,
you.
It's so awesome to have you in the podcast today.
It's my pleasure.
It's been heart's desire to get you in and learn about who you are and how you've evolved in the space in Frisco and that kind of stuff. So it's a pleasure, and I just want to let you know that. We talk about we're here to talk about Frisco Pet Partners, right? And beyond that, I want to tell you personally that you, as a community member in Frisco, myself, I get to have a kind of a bird's eye view on how the city is operating and seeing how some of the community-centered leaders are engaging with the community and being active and making significant change. And I've respected and admire how your congenial nature and how you approach your leadership style. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
We're going to talk about your personal journey and motivations. What inspired you to turn your passion for animals into a larger mission with Frisco Pet Partners? And who are your collaborative partners?
So what inspired us happened in 2020. It was a COVID year, and everybody's world turned upside down at that point. And there was a lot of things that needed to change, and some things were forced into change and some things weren't. And so after the dust kind of settled as to what did the world look like at that time, there was a lot of things that we had been advocating for. When I say we, I mean myself and my co-founder, Chris Fields. We had both been advocating for a variety of different things at the city level. And to be honest, there's just some things that government's not meant to do. So we decided that, you know what? If government's not to do it and we see a gap, let's do it. Let's do the work, and let's put the nonprofit together and actually do the work of what we see is needed. And so really being able to dive into the education advocacy that we saw severely lacking that would ultimately lead to what we now have as Frisco Pet Partners was a process. Anybody who's ever decided to start a nonprofit knows what I'm talking about. But it was also something that we both had a very strong passion and desire to be a part of, both being severe animal lovers, me being the dog person, him being the self-proclaimed cat guy, and wanting to make sure that we were actually making a difference.
Yeah, that's amazing. I'm familiar with Chris. He's done some work with Rob Altman and some of the people we know.
Yep.
So just having you two together working on this particular project is really awesome. With regards to how did you rescue your dog? How did rescuing your dog Chance change the way you viewed the role, your role in animal welfare and community service?
Sure. So let me back up a little bit about.
Yeah.
So I used to volunteer with an organization called Paws in the City. Still around, phenomenal organization, highly recommend them. And I would get the list of animals that were up for euthanization at a bunch of the different local shelters, because that's where we pulled from. And I got this picture of this dog that was smiling in his kennel picture. You very rarely see shelter dogs that are smiling. They're usually stressed. They're usually something's going on with them. But he was labeled as having behavior issues. And I'm seeing this smiling dog that's labeled as behavior issues, and I just couldn't reconcile it. And so I called the shelter to try to learn a little bit more about what was he labeled as behavior issues. And she told me, well, the owners that surrendered him said he never was potty trained. He was about a year old at the time. And I'm thinking in my mind going, a year old, he hasn't potty trained, and he looks like he's the sweetest dog I've ever seen. And he's about to be put down because of what I am now analyzing as being bad owners.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. And I wrestled with it so much that night, I couldn't sleep. My husband finally said, honey, if you still feel like this in the morning, go get him. We will foster him, and we will help get him adopted to the right family. Lo and behold, there's nothing wrong with this dog. There is absolutely no behavior issues wrong with this dog. So it was incredibly eye-opening that sometimes it's the owner, it's the tools that the owners have that can ultimately lead to an animal being wound up at the shelter. And this dog is amazing. He's the sweetest, he's the most independent, he's getting a little stubborn in his old age because he can't really hear, but sometimes I think it's selective hearing. But he's been a fabulous dog that we've had. He had one accident, one, when we got him, one, that was it. And he immediately potty trained after that. So taking into account the ability to say, okay, it's not his fault. How can we better equip the humans so we don't have more animals in this same position?
Yeah. Wow, that's a great question to ask, because especially your story where you're connecting to some, you're like, this is not really that, this should not be the end result for this beautiful dog that's smiling, and that you're seeing Chance smiling, and he's on his way to the gas chamber or wherever, right?
Exactly.
That's really unfortunate. Going back to question number one about your collaborative partnership, I meant to ask you this: is what's the unique fusion? What's the unique fusion that brings you and Chris together? What's the winning combination, would you say, in your collaborative partnership?
I do think it's the fact that I'm so passionate about I'm so passionate about dogs, and he's so passionate about cats. It gets a good balance because I have a habit to gravitate towards the dogs, and he's always kind of, if I say, hey, we need to go look at this dog adoption, he's like, cats. Cats. And just trying to make sure that we get that well-roundedness. But additionally, we have a whole board now of people that come from different rescue groups around the area and that serve the Frisco community that are all working together to come up with a collaborative approach. And it's all those different perspectives. We've got one of our gentlemen is extremely passionate about spay and neuter and the importance of doing that. We've got another one that's extremely passionate about, again, making sure that the education tools are out there. There's another one that's want to make sure that we've got the right, that we're helping to get the right amount of volunteers for some of the things like the shelters who desperately need help. So we've got these different passions within the organization, within the board, that's ultimately helping us to bring together a really impactful group.
Yeah, that's awesome. Find a good core group that believes in your mission with some. In one section, like you said, one's really passionate about spay and neuter, and Chris is crazy about cats. So he's a cat. He's not a cat lady. He's a cat man.
Yes, he is definitely a cat man.
Let's see here. Let's see. And challenges and overcoming obstacles. What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when co-founding, that you and Chris faced, and you or your collaborative partners today are facing, and how are you overcoming them?
So we officially incorporated in 2021. But we just started raising money this last year. So we had been doing everything off of volunteer, off of nothing that required any outspend either. So that's actually been the hardest part, is that now that we've flipped the switch where we're hosting more adoption events, which requires things like insurance, because you are dealing with pets and public and you never know, something could happen. It's getting all the little details together to really start building things up. As a young organization, it takes a village to really kind of get things up and moving and creating that momentum. We were very blessed recently with a grant that gave us $1,000 that ultimately helped finish off the need to pay for our insurance plan for the entire year. So now we are able to host an adoption event every single month. We're able to do a spay and neuter clinic, which involves surgery, another very expensive insurance. So it's the little things like that that you don't even necessarily think of that are requirements for operating an organization that you have to have. So we go from being really the arms and feet to now we're actually getting to do so much more than what we had been doing because of the raising the funds and really starting to move forward.
Yeah. I could see how those little intricacies can just hinder just your growth and expansion as an organization. Frisco, let me make sure because this is a tongue twister. This is like a Frisco Veterans Advisory. Frisco's, okay, here it is. What is it? Frisco Advisory, what's it, pet? Could you
The Animal Advisory Committee.
Animal Advisory Committee. Trust me, I interviewed.
It takes some practice.
It does. I interviewed, I think, Rob Altman one time, and I was like, Veterans Frisco
Frisco Veterans Advisory Commission.
Yeah, there you
yes,
go. Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes.
So okay. So tell me a little bit about that organization and what is it designed to do?
Yeah, so that's actually tied very closely to Frisco Pet Partners, because when we founded Frisco Pet Partners, the Animal Advisory Committee didn't exist yet.
Oh.
And so it was shortly after we got all the 501c3 documentation up and running that the Animal Advisory Committee was formed. That was when I got on council and was able to actually help to drive that to becoming a reality. Wow. And when we did that, we decided to kind of put Frisco Pet Partners on pause while we figured out exactly what the roles and responsibilities of the Animal Advisory Committee were going to be and what role was Frisco Pet Partners going to play separately. So, but to the Animal Advisory Committee, also supportive of animal education, advocacy, and welfare of our animals. But again, there's some things that government can do well, and there's some things that government can't do. Yeah. So they've done a phenomenal job of helping to really push some initiatives. Like we have been able to have, we had an adoption event at the library actually just last week. Oh, wow. We've had, our animal services has been participating in so many events. They bring a microchip scanner with them everywhere they go. So that way, if you want to check your chip, make sure that your information is still current, they can help you do that immediately. That's one of the best ways we can get animals back to their owners if things ever get lost. We've now hosted 2 vaccination and microchip events, which we had never done something like that before, which is incredible. Each one of those, we served way more people than I think we thought we were going to, which was a wonderful thing to see. And then now we're working on supporting the animal shelter with a foster panel. Just next week, we are going to be hosting at the library. We're going to be hosting a panel of Collin County Animal Services, as well as 2 of our local rescue groups, to talk about what does fostering mean. If anybody has ever been interested in having a dog or a cat or even a bunny crash at their house for a little bit, why those animals are waiting for their forever home, we want to give the people the opportunity to really talk about it and learn more about it. And that would be a huge help to capacity for our local shelter if we can create some more fosters within our community.
That's awesome, man. To just get more information out there, When I first got baby Gia, Giovanna, it was I reached out to you. I was like, oh my God, what do I do? Because I never owned a pet before. I had one goldfish, and no wait, somebody bought me some birthday present. It was an aquarium full of fish, and they jumped out when I changed the water, and they all died 2 days later. So it wasn't very long. And that was my
not long
pet.
Lasting.
That was my pet. That was not long lasting. That was my first initial pet ownership. They all got shocked, and they all died. So,
oh no!
But
bad first experience.
No, I think it was really. You were a great resource to reach out to ask for some advice, because it's like, do I have the temperament? Do I have the patience and the love and care to nurture a dog? Gia, and when we first got her, I was like, "Where's this little small little thing?" I was like, "What? Go out for a pass." But she's been a really great, and she's been really great, and your advice has been really on point. As one of Frisco's, I use the word community-centered leader, right? How would you define community-centered leader? What does that mean to you?
I am a big proponent of community helping community. And so Frisco was a very small, close-knit town when I moved here over 20 years ago. I moved here, my parents moved here in 2001. I moved here in 2002.
Okay.
And so we were only 40,000 people at the time. And it seemed like everybody still knew everybody, and we've been rapidly growing. So by community giving back to your community, it gives you the opportunity of learning, one, a need that is within your area. It helps you to find a passion that you really want to enjoy giving back through, but it also gives you the opportunity to meet other people that you probably wouldn't have met otherwise. So when I go to these dog rescue groups, I meet people that I've never met before, but just because we are all pet advocates and we are all wanting to see more improved animal welfare within our community, we immediately have something in common. We immediately bond. We have something that we can talk about. And I think just as a culture, we could use a little more of that.
Yeah.
We could use a little bit more of, I'm not red or blue, I'm an animal advocate. And you've got people on both sides of the aisle doing that.
Yeah.
Same thing with kids. Like when you've got people that are wanting to feed hungry kids, those are both sides of the aisle. So the more that people can come together and see people and as their neighbors, I think we're going to be a lot more better off for that.
That is so awesome. Yeah, I think you're so right on that. How do you think your experience, as a community-centered leader, has helped shape Frisco's Animal Advisory Committee?
Well,
And what steps did you take to advocate for policy change in animal welfare?
Well, thankfully, I'm the pet advocate, right? That's kind of
Yeah.
my nickname.
Yeah.
So when it comes to really trying to drive things of what we want to do here within Frisco, a lot of them will look to me to say, what should we be doing? Or if I bring a recommendation forward and it's something that we can actually do, I can typically get some buy-in. So when we said we really wanted to do, and it's not just me, we have a wonderful committee that really helps to drive a lot of this forward. But when the entire committee and the liaison are sitting there and saying, hey, we really need to do more in X, Y, and Z, then when it's a unanimous from all these different representatives within the community, and we have everyone from a behavioralist to a shelter volunteer to pet businesses focused. So we've got this broad variety of people that are sitting in the room that are all wanting to contribute. And when we're all saying this is needed, it tends to be a little bit more easily heard. When multiple people are saying that these are things that we need. So that was the vaccinations, that was the education programs. And so we've been able to really pick up traction from that.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, I did some work with what is it? Project Canine Hero. Yeah, and they do rehabilitation rehoming for retired military working dogs and police canine. And there's a guy named Joe Zaccarello that I interviewed at one of the events, and he was talking about how he owns a bunch of pet grooming facilities, and he said, yeah, I go, why did you get into this? And he's like, I saw a need in this throughout the U.S. that there weren't enough grooming facilities in the cities, which was really shocking to me because I didn't see it as you see the intricacies of pet ownership or just the pet industry as a whole, or just serving the pet community is how this one pet grooming, he's created a whole business out of it. And it was interesting that there's some gaps that little things that you can't see, and this was one of them for me. I was like, wow. He said, yeah, I filled this gap. I put grooming grooming shops throughout the U.S. I was like,
And
wow.
there's a variety of different grooming
Yeah.
facilities, right? There's the full service where you just drop your animal off and leave.
Yeah.
But there's also like, do you pull up and you actually put your dog on the table and start working with some of the tools?
Yeah.
And like one of my dogs, as an example, he can't be kenneled. He's still very traumatized from his time in the shelter. And so if I ever take him to be groomed, he can't be kenneled. So I have to find a specialty groomer that will not kennel him while he's waiting for his turn. So there's all sorts of unique needs and characteristics out there that can help fit the pet community.
Is there a list? Is there a place where we could find where some of those needs are? Like,
Well, that's one of the things that we're trying to create on our website is at friscopetpartners.org, shameless plug.
Yeah.
We are trying to put together some resources that are available, like some of the common questions. We're still working on the groomer side of it for some of the different things, but like one of the number one questions we get is, it's late at night, where do I take my dog? And so we've put together a list of the 24-hour veterinaries that are available here within the area. There's, I want to go adopt a dog, but I want to do from a rescue. We're working on putting together a list of the rescue groups that serve specifically Frisco. I've lost my dog. What do I do? And so it's the common best practices of like how to help help your dog find their way home. There's other things like who to call, the different shelters to notify, what to do with your, the information from your chip, all that types of things. So we are starting to put those resources together. We're still building some of it out, but probably about half of what we want is out there right now.
Yeah.
Behavioralists and trainers,
Yeah.
that's another big one that we
Yeah.
get, is somebody, we adopted a dog and he's got a quirk. So he's a very sweet boy, very, very loving. He's about 60 pounds of lap dog. But if you scare him when he's sleeping, it freaks him out. It really freaks him out and we know that he was dumped in a field. So who knows how long he was out in the wild by himself. So if he was trying to defend himself against, coyotes, bobcats, whatever, when he was sleeping, he was always having to be on high alert. So once we were able to work with the behavioralist and get him a kennel that made him feel very safe, and we know don't scare him when he's sleeping, we're able to work through that, and we have a much healthier relationship with him too.
Yeah, that behavioralist, I have to look that one up. I mean, Gia's great. Probably for me. Like you said, it's probably the owner.
It is the owner.
Yeah, it is the owner, not probably,
There's
right?
a lot of great dog trainers on there too, for like if you've got a puppy training or stuff like that. So we're starting to put together that type of stuff as well.
Okay, advice for aspiring change makers. What advice would you give someone looking to start their own nonprofit or advocate for change in their community?
So the very first thing that I would recommend is figure out if someone else is already doing it. One, starting a 501c3 is no joke. And two, you don't necessarily want to divide the resources for the same type of thing. But if you in fact have an idea and a concept that you are on your own for, and no one else is currently doing this, I would say start looking online for the governing documents and the things that you want to, information you need to collect to really define what you are going to do. There's a lot of legal ramifications and requirements for when you form a 501c3. There's the tax requirements. There's the governing documents to file the business filings. There's the state and local level, state and national levels. So there's a lot that goes into it. We personally we were able to collect a lot of the information and start it, but we still had to hire a lawyer to, at the end of the day, go through all of our documents and actually help us to get the business in place. And it was not cheap, which is another reason why I say be very cautious of whether or not something already exists, because it might be worth you getting involved with something versus having to put the money out to get something started.
Yeah.
But highly recommend getting a lawyer if you can afford it. It was a couple $1,000s just to starting point. But it really did help us get the paperwork in place that helped to launch us in getting the business started. And a 501c3, you've got tax documents that you're required to do every year. So if you are raising money or you are taking in donations, all of that types of things, you have to be very detailed oriented. You have to have a treasurer that's going to keep track of all of this to make sure that you don't get yourselves or your entire board in trouble with the IRS. No one wants that.
Yeah. Wow, that's pretty intricate. I think that's a really valid point, is that you can be part of something, you can try to create it on your own, but you're gonna go through a lot. You're gonna go through a lot of hoops. You're gonna jump through a lot of hoops, right?
Well, and if you're serving the same population,
Yeah.
then why not join forces and
Yeah.
create something even more powerful than
Yeah.
trying to create something by yourself? But there's plenty of different things out there that that are needs that are not currently met. So I would definitely encourage anybody, if you've got the passion and the resources, and you've got a board that's going to help you get started and have actual worker bees on that board, it can be done.
With regards to pet ownership, what's the benefits of someone being a pet owner?
Oh, there's so many. The unconditional love you get from your animal. I mean, I've been married for 16 years, and I guarantee my dog is happier to see me than my husband is. So, and it goes vice versa. So, there is, I mean, it's one of my favorite sounds in the world is I can hear my dog's tail beating up against the wall when I'm coming in from the garage because someone's so excited to see me. It's that type of thing that, it's that kind of companionship. And especially during COVID when people were, confined to their houses, and so many people are even still working from home. You're not getting out into the community. Yeah. An animal can help you with that, and Chris would kill me for this because I'm going to talk dogs now, but like we get out and walk our dogs every single morning. Just the health benefits of that, of getting out. I enjoy my nice cup of coffee while I'm walking the dog, and we see some of our neighbors. It helps us to meet people. Even when we moved into a new community, we met so many people just because we were out walking our dogs. If you never, especially with rear garages, you might not even ever see your neighbors if you're not out in the community. So it creates this ability to meet people, companionship, the health benefits. It's been scientifically proven that having an animal can lower your blood pressure. They say petting an animal can help soothe anxiety. They say even just staring into your dog's, maybe cats, I don't know if cats come with this too, but probably. If you just stare into your dog's eyes, that it helps to release serotonin for both of you. So there's a lot of things that can come from it. The bond that you can create from training, and there's a lot of benefits.
Okay, so I need to answer this because it's really important, and I'll edit it out if I need to.
Okay.
Chris might kill me for this one. Are cats really pets?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. I am highly allergic,
Yeah,
so my
me too.
family has never had them.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell Chris's favorite story is that, so he grew up with dogs, and his wife grew up with cats. And he says they compromised, and they now have cats. So
That's funny.
yes. But yeah, so his wife, and his girls are all, super cat lovers. They foster even, and they will have cats coming in and out. And there are some very affectionate cats. Of course, I am, like I said, highly allergic, and
too.
occasionally one will try to be super affectionate with me. But yeah, there's plenty of cats that are very, very independent, but some are very social.
No, Courtney has my wife Courtney. She has 2 cats. They live upstairs. They have the whole upstairs to themselves. Because
That's spoiled cats.
yeah, I'm allergic, very allergic too. What do you think is the key to creating lasting? That's the part I told you that one of the things that your congenial nature to forge bonds in this community is really one of the things that I admire the most about your leadership style. What do you think is the key to creating lasting and meaningful change in a community, whether it's for animal welfare or broader social issues?
It goes a little bit back to the community helping community,
Yeah.
and actually getting to know your neighbors and working alongside them. And I think it's creating a culture that cares. I think when people know more, they tend to be more involved. And not just pets. Like I can name numerous organizations that friends of mine are involved, or I even got to serve on one of the city boards for social services prior to my current role with the city. And I got to hear all of the different needs that were within the community that were being brought forward. And it was incredibly eye-opening to know that those needs even existed in our area. So by educating people, you help make people more aware. And people who are more aware can care, can get involved, can contribute. But without doing that, unless somebody tells you, how are you going to know?
Yeah. Laura, last thing, do you want to give a shout out to some partnerships and support systems that have helped Frisco Pet Partners be successful?
I would love to. So first I would love to shout out to a couple of our different rescue partners that have worked with us numerous times. That's Cody's Friends Rescue, that's Habitat for Paws, that's Rescue Row. All three of these organizations have done multiple different rescue events with us. Some of them, as well as Frisco Humane Society, are going to be sitting on the panel with us for the Animal Advisory Committee, so not Frisco Pet Partners, but we still appreciate their partnership in the pet community. And obviously Collin County Animal Services, as well as Frisco Animal Services. Both of them do incredible work within our community, especially with the resources that they are given. So definitely shout out to all of them and the hard work, the love and energy that they constantly put into the pet community. But finally, I would like to plug the group that gave us the $1,000 grant, because that really is what's going to help take us to the next level over the next 12 months. And that's the 200 Muslim Women's Group that gave us that $1,000 grant. That was really changing for us. That's
awesome. Laura, again and again, I love the way your community-centered leadership is impacting the place I live in. You know, as a community member here, we get to watch Frisco, the city of Frisco, flourish. And as a new pet owner, it's great to know you, because I can lean on some advice when I want to reach out to you.
Anytime,
I can say, hey, point me the right direction. Show me where I can behave better. Because that's probably what it is. But no, I think shedding the light on it's broadened my spectrum. You know, it's part of my scope on how to view things now. Having Gia and having her look at me in those eyes, look at me and look at me and look at me.
And how can you say no to that face? She's so cute.
I was like, she's teaching me how to overcome my hypervigilance, because that's what I always say. No, but no, it's been a blessing. It's eye-opening to be engaging in conversation with a pet advocate like yourself and others that I have, because it really has kind of saying, okay, you got more to learn about this whole issue about pet ownership. And
we all do. We all could learn to be better.
Yeah. So thank you very much for what you're doing in the community, as always. And it's a pleasure to have you on the podcast. Next Level Thinkers are charting new horizons of brilliance. And I really do believe that you're bringing a fresh mindset on how to embrace change in this community. So thank you so much.
I do appreciate that.
All right, guys, that's it for Next Level Thinkers, a Charting New Horizons of Brilliance podcast. As I always say, have peace and light in you, and remember that the ocean refuses no river.
We're flying high, yeah, beyond the stars. Next Level Thinkers, here we are. Breaking limits, mind so bright. We're the dreamers of the endless night. Out in the galaxies, we're chasing the unknown. Ideas like rockets from seeds we've sown. Breaking through the boundaries, thinking on our feet. Innovators rising, feel that cosmic beat. Visionaries, pioneers, see the future clear. We're charting new horizons, no limits here.